Welcome you all to this first lecture of the third week related to history of Arabic literature. And the title of the lecture is The Arabic Literature in Umayyad Era. Umayyad period is a historically very significant period related to history of Arabic language and literature, because it constitutes a clear line of distinction and demarcation, very significant for the things to come in the domains of language, literature, theology, theological sciences, in Arabic language and literature. We have seen that before Islam, Arabic was there, a very advanced language, but its literary enterprise was limited to, not fully, but significantly, to poetry, where prose was not as we can't say significant, rather it was significant, but not well recorded, and they developed as we find the case in the poetics, or the case related to the poetics. In the early days of Islam, that is the early Islamic period, things changed. The several concepts related to language and literature underwent major changes in the backdrop of Islam, Quran, and Hadith. That is the points of meeting points between language and the culture of society, and the culture of society primarily plays a significant role in all things related to language and literature. The Umayyads, we must recollect here the famous saying of Ahmad Amin, in which he says that كان الإسلام دينا في مكة. Islam was a religion in Makkah. وكان دينا ومجتمعا في المدينة المنورة. It was a religion and society in Medina. وكان دينا ومجتمعا وسياسة أو دولة في دمشق. It was a religion, society, and state in Damascus. Damascus stands for the Umayyads in historical parlance. And after that he says that كان الإسلام دينا ومجتمعا ودولة وحضارة في بغداد. So during the times of the Umayyads, Islam became a state. Before that it was not a state, although we have something like a state in Medina. But in historical parameters and concepts related to the state, well-defined concepts and structure related to state, it was not a state over there, but state came with the advent of the Umayyads. There was a widespread expansion of Islam. So by 750, we find that Islam moves to all these areas. Means it is spread to, we can say, 3 continents: Asia, Africa, and Europe. So it was a huge expansion. This huge expansion for the first time in Arabia's history is related to the Umayyads. This figure also showcases the spread of Islam in some very clear terms. Under Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was limited to this. Under Abu Bakr and so under Ali, things started expanding. And then the Umayyads, we have all these, and after that the Abbasids. So here again we find that with the passage of time and with some time frame that is not very much extended, we find that Arabic with Islam becomes a very dominant phenomenon, political, literary, intellectual, religious, scientific, philosophical phenomenon within a smaller chunk of time. As the overview and historical context, this dynasty was founded by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, and the capital was, there were two capitals of the Umayyads. Usually it is said that Umayyads' capital was Damascus, but no, Harran also happened to be its capital. So this is the first capital, and this is the second and last capital of the Umayyads. Harran, which is now located in modern-day Turkey, Sanliurfa, Harran. Harran was a significant city during the Middle Ages, identified with the Sabi'ah, or Sabi'in, as the religious followers of Sabaism. And we find a large number of scholars, Muslim scholars, philosophers, theologians, who hailed from Harran, like Ibn Taymiyyah. Allama Ibn Taymiyyah was also Harrani. Harrani was the epicenter of Christianity also. Still, we find we'll be having several ancient churches alongside the remaining Asar of the Sabia in Mesopotamia region. So the major caliphs were Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, Al-Walid Awal, Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. Expansion from Spain to Central Asia. The expansion was from Spain to Central Asia, as we have seen that during the Umayyad times, Islam is spread to that and to this. So this is the Central Asian region. And Spain to Central Asia. Although in proper historical perspectives, we don't identify Spain, Muslim Spain, as a part of the Umayyad period. Rather, we call it the Spanish period or the Andalusian period, which will be discussed while we'll be talking about expansion of Islam or Islamic or Arabic language and literature in areas outside the Arabian Peninsula, outside Asia, outside Africa, rather focusing to Europe, this region. It was overthrown by the Abbasids after the Battle of Zab in 750. Language reforms, Arabic became the official administrative language. So, of course, before that it was the administrative language, official language during the times of the Khulafa Rashidin. But since the concept of state, as we have, because before that it was the Khilafah, Al-Khilafah Rashida. Now we have the state, because the Umayyad times, the Umayyad Empire cannot be identified with the expansion of Khilafah. So it was not Khilafah. It was simply a Dawla. And the difference between them lies in so many points, which are necessary, not needed to elaborate upon in this lecture. Primarily, Khilafa system didn't have the imperial aspect or the kingship. Kingship was not there. Here we have the kingship in the Umayyad times. We have the kingship. It was the beginning of kingship. بداية الملوكية الملك والملوكية في الإسلام. Arabic became the official administrative language. The Umayyad period marked the shift from Bedouin simplicity to urban civilization. So, although Medina happened to be a society, but again, it was not, the spirit was not that of the urban civilization. So, with the advent of the Umayyads as their capital, as Damascus, their capital, we find the urban civilization taken over the Bedouin simplicity. There were 13 major, rather 16 caliphs. Some of them are described by the historians as legitimate. Others simply by the way of usurping the power or taking over the power and grabbing the power by unlawful means. So, first it was Al-Amir Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, and the last was Marwan Asani, which is known as Marwan al-Himar. Why is known as Himar? Maybe we'll be talking about that later on. So, with Marwan al-Himar, it comes to an end, and where the beginning was Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. When it is said that there was the urban culture, it was the state, the concept of a state. In a state, we have the political administration. So, political administration, political culture, political identity, administrative structure of the society, of the state. These are the primary parameters to an entity that is known as a state. So, before the advent of the Umayyads, we don't have this. So, it underlines many things like the monetary and fiscal policy, the coinage, study of which is known as the numismatics, that is the monetary system, the coinage system. So, before that, Arabia didn't have its own coins. The coins in uses were either the Byzantium or the Sassanides. The Sassanide coins or the Byzantium coins were there. So even the Khulafa Rashidin, they didn't have their own coins. So it was with the advent of the Umayyads that we have the coins. It started by Al-Amir Muawiyah. He had also his own coins that were under heavy influence from the Sassanides and the Byzantiums. Abdul Malik ibn Marwan introduced an independent Islamic currency, the gold dinar, in 693, which originally depicted a human figure, likely the caliph, as shown in this coin minted in 695. In 697, the figural depictions were replaced by solely the Quranic and other Islamic inscriptions. So, this is the first gold coin in the history of Islam. This is again the gold dinar of Abdul Malik. So, this is the first, and this is the second. In the first, we have the image, which was likely the image of the caliph, of course. And the second, here again, this image was replaced by the Quranic verses, by the Arabic verses, the standard, etc. So, La ilaha illallah, and other things you have. So, the gold dinar of Abdul Malik, minted in Damascus in 697. Abdul Malik introduced an independent Islamic currency which initially bore depictions of the caliph as it has been seen before being abandoned for coins solely containing inscriptions. Uh, with the alongside the coinage, that is the currency or administration of the monetary system, fiscal policy, organization of economy, we have the architecture, because we cannot conceive of any state in isolation of architecture. So Umayyad Mosque, which still stands proud uh, today, it's a glorious example of the foremost example of the grandeur, the architectural grandeur of the Umayyads. So simply we can have a glimpse of this in this. The expansion of Khilafah. Here, Khilafah, the word Khilafah is used in a something like a loose parameter, because from strictly ideological perspectives, or the concept of Khilafah as different from the Mulukiya or the state, if you adhere to this, we will not be using the word Khilafah for the Umayyads or the Khalifa for the Umayyad Caliph. Although it happened that in practically uh, every ruler identified himself to be the caliph, because that sometimes that provided him with this sort of the authority, religious authority, uh, because the Khalifa or the Khilafa, Khalifa, this is a word that is found in the Islamic canonical legacy, that is Khalifa. It has been used in the Holy Quran. So Khilafat, it expanded to Maghreb, Hispania, Sindh, and Transoxiana. Sindh, that is India over here, Persia, whole Arabia, and Africa, and Iberia. So it was the expansion. The society was emerged as the first organized Islamic civilization and the first Islamic dynasty. So it was the beginning of the dynastic rule, and a starting point of Islamic civilization, because the things that we have, the cultural values, the societal values that we have in the early days of Islam, or before the advent of Islam, that is pre-Islamic Arabia, they would hardly constitute an edifice of civilization. So civilizational values, cultural values were there, societal values were there related to human culture. But when it comes to organized civilization, it starts with the emergence of a state, which actually happened in the history of Islam with the advent of the Umayyads. So it was the first Islamic dynasty and beginning point of the organized Islamic civilization. It was established by Al-Amir Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. It evolved from the tribal community to multi-ethnic society. So before that, Arabia uh, largely consisted of the tribal communities, Al-Qaba'il, belonging to Adnani and Qahtani, primarily Adnani and Qahtani tribes. Because the Al-Arab al-Ba'ida, the extinct Arabs, were no more. They were annihilated with the tides of time. So, with the advent of the Umayyads, we have the multi-ethnicity in society, multi-ethnicity in the backdrop of Islam. Peoples outside Arabia accepting Islam, or being converted to Islam, adopting Islam as their religion and Arabic as their religious language, and being integrated into the culture. So it was multi-ethnic. Before that, ethnicity is not there. It was the tribal system. Now you have the Arabs, the Ajams, the non-Arabs, the Sindhis, and other peoples drawn from. So all these regions have their own ethnicities. The Copts as ethnicity, the Syriac as ethnicity, Suryani, the Sindhis, Bloshi, etc., as ethnicities, and here the Visigoths as the ethnicity. So while coming into the fold of Islam, here we have that society, which was primarily multi-ethnic. Capital shifted from Medina to Damascus. Political expansion. So there was the political expansion, and it is very clear in these maps. Political expansion was there. And economic prosperity, because of the expansion, because of the invasions, الفتوحات. إن هذه الفتوحات التي نراها في العصر في الخلافة الراشدة، أيام الخلافة الراشدة وبعدها في عصر الأمويين، إن الفتوحات الإسلامية أدت إلى ازدهار كبير، إلى ازدهار اقتصادي كبير، تطور اقتصادي كبير. إذن يعني الازدهار الاقتصادي في الحقيقة كان راجعا إلى انتشار الإسلام في كل هذه المناطق، إلى الفتوحات السياسية. الفتوحات السياسية. Economic prosperity. Cultural integration of the early Islamic world. So the early Islamic world in this perspective, here we can see that this was the Islamic world during the Umayyad period. Islamic world. Multi-ethnicities, multiple cultural identities, because the Persians had their own culture, Indians their own culture. Even within these regions, we have the Mawara Nahar culture, the culture in Khurasan, etc. The Coptic culture, the Egyptian culture, and here the tribal cultures in the Afro-Mediterranean area, the Berber culture, and followed by the culture of, you can see the European culture, if we prefer the use of this term, the Visigothic culture, the Iberian culture. So all coming to the fold of Islam. So this multi-ethnicity was integrated within the ambit of Islam. So cultural integration. So diverse population, there were the Arabs, the Persians, the Berbers, the Copts, the Greeks, and also Indians will be having. The structure of the Umayyad society, you have the ruling class, the Umayyad caliphs and governors, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, etc. We had the administrative class, secretaries and bureaucrats, Abdul Hamid al-Katib, Abdul Hamid al-Katib, al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Saqafi, among others. The religious and scholarly class that played role in legal and moral guidelines, like Hassan al-Basri, Urwa ibn Zubair, Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, and then we have the common peoples, the common peoples represented by the farmers, the traders, the soldiers, etc. The non-Arab population were there, the converted Persians, Syrians, Egyptians, Copts, and others. This actually brings to the fore the phenomenon that is known as al-Muwalladin al-Mawali. Al-Muwalladin wa al-Mawali. Because of the intermingling, that is interracial, intercommunal, inter-ethnic marriages, we find a generation of people who were half Arabs. And these peoples are known as al-Muwalladin wa al-Mawali. We'll be having some facets of interfaith cohesion. Although Islam was the religion of the state, but it didn't mean that the non-Islamic religious identities were simply made to diminish. This is not a fact. They existed with their identity, and we'll be having many examples of this in our in history. The big example is that of the John of Damascus. John of Damascus, he has written Heresy of the Ishmaelites. Among many books he has written, Yuhanna Dimashqi. He is known in Arabic sources as Yuhanna Dimashqi. This heresy of the Ishmaelites is something like the critic of Islam. It is something like critic of Islam. So if the simple thing is that when we find John of Damascus, Yohanna Dimashqi, writing something against Islam, criticizing Islam, living in that society, it means that there was something like tolerance, coexistence in that society. That's the first thing. The second thing is that among the books he has written in Greek as well as in other languages, his books were also translated into Arabic, and this is one example of this literature. We'll be talking about this aspect in further details while we'll be talking about in a lecture dedicated to the legacy, the Umayyad legacy. About Al-Akhtal and his relationship with how he was related to Al-Muawiyah, Al-Amir Muawiyah. Al-Akhtal was a Christian poet. He was the state poet. He was very much close to Amir Muawiyah. He wore always, it has been recorded by the historians that he wore salib. So he wore salib as a symbol of Christianity. And he was great friends with Al-Amir Muawiyah. The impact of this we find in the Syriac Arabic. So we'll be having that the Syriac language and this Arabic language. Syriac, Arabic, Syriac, Arabic. So coexistence of these two scripts mean a lot in terms of states or societies' role or standpoint in cases related to ethnicity or ethnic or cultural sensitivities. So the cultural and the intellectual life of the Umayyad era, cultural synthesis of Arab, it was synthesis of Arab, Greek, Persian, and Coptic influences. Poetry, rhetoric, calligraphy, and architecture flourished. There was the movements of translations, rise of scholars and teachers in Damascus, Medina, Basra, and Kufa. The public sermons, that is, khutab and letters, etc., emphasized Islamic unity. Early schools of thought emerged like Murji'a, Khawarij, Shia, etc., alongside the architecture reflected both in spirituality, in Islamic spirituality, and Byzantium aesthetics. So this lecture is primarily something like a historical background, focusing on the background, political, historical, cultural background of the Umayyad era. We'll be talking about which is subject of our deliberation in relation to language, literature, poetry, prose, translations, etc. in our future lectures. With this very first lecture of the third week is concluded. Thank you very much.